Testing. If everyone can please take your seats. Town Hall Session 1 will begin very shortly. Thank you.
She said she wants it already. Yeah, she definitely can.
Testing.
No sound yet. Maybe you can try. Let us say something. As a code, I just wanted to test that.
Test.
Yeah, is that? Sure, but you don't think you want to ask me if I can do it now, and then we'll come back on.
Hello, everyone. Hi, everyone. Yes, too soft, so I need to shout. Hi, everyone. Hello. Welcome to Town Hall Session 1. So we're going to start right now for Town Hall Session 1. So I'll just need your help to calm down a little bit. I know you're all excited at the end of the day. So again, welcome to Town Hall Session 1. I'm Yan Chin, I'm from ICANN, but today I'll be serving as the co-chair for the drafting committee here. So together with Jan here as support from Secretariat, and then online we have my co-chair, Lokendra, as well. So just a quick overview for those who have not joined Town Hall sessions before. This is basically a session where you can come up to the mic there, or you could just raise your hand. We'll have running mics where you can share some of the key input and thoughts from the discussions today, from the sessions today that you were in. Share the things that you think are important, raise it here. And then, of course, it's not just sharing in the town hall here. What we'll do is we'll want to try and capture all those comments in a document called a synthesis document. So just a quick background on synthesis document. This serves as a document that collates all the key output from this APrIGF. This year, it's our 9th edition. We started the synthesis document pilot experiment in 2015. And since then onwards, we had it annually. So the document really shows highlights and key important topic that we talk about at each year's APrIGF. And the document is shepherded by a community of volunteers called the Drafting Committee, the DC basically in short. And the DC helps to collect input and review all the comments received from you as well. And we'll draft this document and try to make it easily readable. And this document will be published and also will be used for further discussions and shared at further global IGF discussions. So with APAC having, the world's largest population and the diversity here, it's really important for us to share our voices. So this document is a key document that we want to use to further our discussions at the global arena. So again, the key thing here is, when you join the sessions from today, what did you think was important to capture in the document? Please come up and share. Later on, we'll go by sub-tracks. So we'll go in the different sub-tracks and we'll have that populated on the screen as well for you to refer. But for now, I will actually pass it on to Lakendra to share some of the timeline for the drafting committee work.
Thanks, Inchin. Thank you everyone for joining us today, both there in Brisbane and also virtually. I'm Lakendra. I'm one of the co-chairs along with Inchin. And thank you so much again once for joining. So the process looks something like this, as you see on the screen. It's a 4-month process wherein and it happens every year. In the weeks leading up to APrIGF event, the drafting committee is reconstituted. So we have new members and new co-chairs every year. And then post that, we have sort of a period in which the drafting committee sits and finalizes the draft 0 with the help of the secretariat. And then this draft 0 is released for public input. And then we have the town hall sessions during the event in which we get more input from the public. Then all the inputs that we have collected on the platform, comment platform, as well as during the town hall sessions, they are collected together. The drafting committee sits and goes through them all. And then after a lot of back and forth and a lot of collaboration between the drafting committee members, we come up with the final synthesis document that should be published sometime in early October. Jasmine, yeah, thanks for showing the screen. Yeah, so this is how the exact timeline looks like. We have the town hall meetings today and tomorrow, during which we'll take public inputs. Then we also have the second phase of public input period 1 open till 3rd September. Then from 4th September till end of September, the drafting committee will sit. We'll have our meetings and we will come up with the draft 1, which will be published for public comments by the end of September. It will be open for public input period 2. And then by the end of September and early October, we would be finalizing the draft for publication. And by early October, we would be publishing the draft finally. I hand it over to Jennifer to show us how the comment platform actually works.
Can we have the website shown? Perfect. So here is a quick demo of what the platform looks like. Hopefully you've all gone to comments.aprigf.asia. You can go on there right now with your laptop or your devices. It's actually very easy to comment. Here, oops, the mouse doesn't work. Here you will see in each paragraph, there will be a little, there you go, now it works. There'll be a little speech bubble to the right of each paragraph. If you click on it, you will be asked to leave your name, which is required, your email address, which is also required but not published, and then you will be able to put in whatever comments that you would like on that particular paragraph. Currently, draft 0 is a framework document. Each session that you will be at in this meeting has a paragraph. So if you're sitting in an AI session, which was a very interesting session earlier, and you have this document open and you hear something that you know that must go in this document, click on that little speech bubble and input that into the document. This way you can ensure that we will definitely include this important point in the 2023 synthesis document. So it's really easy. It's comments.aprigf.asia. I think the last time I checked right before the town hall, we've only had 15 comments. So really, we're hoping to beat last year's record. Last year, during the first public input period, we had over 100 comments. Let's see if we can make it even better this year in Brisbane. So please just keep it open on your device. It's very easy, and you won't forget if you have it open when you're in the sessions and put it in. So, and I hand it right back over to Yin-Chin.
Thanks, Jen. Yep. So we do strongly encourage you to have the tab open so that you could easily pop in your comments whenever you're at sessions this 3 days. And also, if you want to be more involved, please feel free to join the drafting committee as well. It's still open for membership. Just write to Secretariat, so secsec@aprigf.asia. So without further ado, we will start the town hall session. But before that, just quickly, logistically, what we'll do is, because we do have quite a bit of virtual participants as well, so we will try and rotate accordingly. So we'll take 3 comments on site, and then we'll shift to 3 comments virtually and continue rinse and repeat. And we will start off with the subtrack on access and inclusion. So on the screen here, you'll see some guiding questions that are related to the access and inclusion sessions. So we do want to start with that and see if anyone wants to come up and start sharing, some key highlights that you heard from some of the access and inclusion sessions today. It's quiet. So just to share some of the access and inclusion sessions today. So there are sessions that cut across more than 1 subtracks. So basically the ones that does touch upon access and inclusion, we have the AI session this morning. We have the investing in professional development for a diverse workforce session. We have the policy development on generative AI session, and amplifying multi-stakeholder voices session in cyber diplomacy, and also breaking security for online safety session. Yep, please state your name.
This is Shraddha for the record. I am a APrIGF fellow, and I would like to respond to the first question on whether emerging technologies are being adopted and developed in the Asia Pacific region, whether they're inclusive or will they exacerbate the already uneven distribution of access. So one thing I drew away from the session in the morning was a very optimistic outlook. So all the speakers acknowledged that there are problems in the way it is being distributed and the technologies, the way they're emerging and how they're being regulated and governed. But one thing they acknowledged was that we are moving in the right direction. And Shabir sir specifically mentioned about how it's a good step, and this is something that we have to accelerate and we have to go at a faster pace, but it is in a positive direction, and he'd like to see progress further in this regard. So a couple of examples that were brought in were with the example that was given by I believe it was Mr. Fernando and Professor, and the examples that they gave was of the payment interface that's being used in India, of how it is leading to inclusion because a person only has to scan one QR code and it leads to a payment gateway, and that's very convenient and it's easily accessible for all people. So that is something, these are the sort of policies they're looking for in the future, and that is something that I took away from the session. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And moving on, do we have other comments? Online virtual participants, please feel free to raise your hands as well.
There's one comment in the chat online from Jean F. from the IO Foundation. Jean, would it be possible for you to say it aloud, or do you want me to read it for you? Okay, I'll read it. Okay, so when it comes to accessibility, it has taken me almost 2 days to be able to participate remotely to this APrIGF, something that needs to be looked into for those who can't afford being in person. This is a comment by Jean F. Thank you so much for your comment. Is there anyone else who would like to add to it or make a comment virtually?
Thank you. My name is Rafiq. Yeah, just on the accessibility issue, I think something that we haven't really spoken about, but in terms of the digital divide, I think language is a huge kind of elephant in the room. If you're not an English speaker, then the internet looks very different than if you are an English speaker. And, you know, you talked about accessibility just to joining this meeting remotely. You know, the fact that we're doing it in English is its own accessibility issue. So I think that that's something to maybe think about.
Just so everybody knows, you can actually stand up and talk as well. Hopefully the standing mic's picking up my dulcet tones. If not, you'll all be picking up my dulcet tones anyway. For those of you who have not met me, Cheryl Langdon Orr, I am a person with disabilities and I'm a little bit interested in this topic. That being said, and I'm going to pick up your multilingual point as well, a huge amount of effort has been done, not necessarily in this internet governance space, but in this sort of associated ecosystem that many of us work in. But we are talking about 15 plus years to get an overnight success on some of these things. There are opportunities, and this room and the people in this room need to keep their finger on the pulse of this so that it becomes part of the planning for things. For example, I could have had, and we explored the possibility of all sorts of languages in human captioning associated with this whole event, but funds. It's not cheap. Oh, I can give you, you know, AI ones at the moment, which will give you some dog's breakfast of gobbledygook, and your experience will be probably less satisfactory than not tuning in at all and looking at the YouTube feed and selecting your language. And that's not good enough either. But we're right at this difficult point in time where, trust me, we did the numbers. They are extraordinarily expensive options right now to give you what I know we can do and we deserve. So keep asking the questions, keep pushing the points, but do recognise that organisations which quite literally run on the smell of an oily rag, and this is what this one does. We're a bunch of volunteers and we are going absolutely cap in hand to any sponsor we can arm twist to get as much as we can, and it's far too little. One final thing. Sometimes we do forget forests and trees because of the time rush on things. And if any of you are interested in beta testing these things before they go live and helping us fix the problems in the future, fantastic. Back to you.
Yeah, just to clarify, I didn't mean to be too harsh on the organisation here, but I mean, I think that issue is a much wider issue when you talk about privacy tools, when you talk about the platforms, you know, across the board. Everyone has the same problem, even when they've got more money.
You might have noticed I'm a bit of an AI fan. I'm hoping some of this AI that isn't going to be so scary that I won't want to use it. Trust me, I'll probably use it anyway. But we'll be doing things like rapidly learning and improving machine translations, because that's got to be cheaper. Sorry, human captioners, but you know, it is just a huge expense, especially when we're not talking about, oh, we're just going to do it in French and maybe Spanish. How many languages would we have to deal with in this region?
Thank you, Rafiq and Cheryl. Yeah, it is indeed in APAC, we do have a large diversity of languages and scripts. It's going to be difficult, but I do encourage you to still put that comment in because it is a key consideration. That reminds me that I wanted to say that even if you have a question that you don't have an, answer to, it's also important to raise it here because we don't have answers to everything, but it's important to raise it for consideration. And then perhaps, somewhere else we could have further discussions to find a solution. And Jordan, please go ahead.
Hi, thanks. Jordan Carter from ADA. This is not an ADA position. I was having a conversation at lunch with someone about how you get accessibility built into websites as a key, very basic, very well-known technology that could increase inclusion. And one of the things we were discussing was the need to advocate to governments that they impose web accessibility guidelines on public sector web developments. And I'm just mentioning that because it's something that we can all do in our jurisdictions at home. We can talk to our government digital offices or whatever to begin to deploy such guidelines, which will have a major improvement over time. Because most countries, governments are big purchasers and providers of online information. And if they are requiring it, that tends to leak through to the private sector development of all the other websites. So that's an example of you might be able to have a relatively coherent point where just a couple of people making a case well can lead to systemic change within that country. And I wonder if that's a kind of model of shaping public sector purchasing that might help bed in other access and inclusion concerns in technology, because in all of our countries in different ways, governments are big players in the economy. And unlike the private sector, they tend to be a bit centralized, and there's usually someone who's responsible for technology in one way or another. So just tabling that as a how to get things done thing to think about and consider. Thank you.
Thank you, Jordan. I guess that's a hint to engage with more governments or government people in this room, I guess. I'm just quickly looking online. Online participants, please do raise your hands if you have any comments, but on site we do have, please go ahead. Yep.
Okay, so you are settled once again with me after Cheryl. So for the record, this is Dr. Muhammad Shabir, and we are talking about access and inclusion, about motivating governments. But let me bring back you all to this hall. We are talking about making states able to work on accessibility, but let's start with our home. Let's make APrIGF itself accessible first. The website where the program of APrIGF is displayed is a big jumbled up if you are a screen reader user. So who would fix it? We would have to fix it. Next year, I want this comment gone into the synthesis document as well. Like next year, the planning for the website event, if you want, I was a speaker, and I had to send my profile through email to the moderator. Cheryl knows it. She has my email on record saying that the online form was not accessible. I could change my name, and submit my picture, headshot, but I could not submit my profile there. So we would have to make these forums, these platforms accessible. We have heard a comment that an online user had to spend 2 days, for God's sake, 48 hours just to connect to the APrIGF. So I wonder if it takes 48 hours for an individual to connect to the APrIGF to get remote access where we are in this 2023 APrIGF. So we need to do a little bit of a soul searching, I would say. And that does not mean to say that we should stop work on the broader level of accessibility. I totally agree that we need to push back onto the governments. We need to say, we need to make the governments adopt policies which are inclusive, which are accessible. I would not go into the details. Number of governments in our region have very flowery words and policies in their policy documents about access and inclusion. But when it comes to the implementation, that would be another story. So I would stop here, not take too much of your time. But the key point here is that let's first be the example for others. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment. Yep, we will work together on that for next year, hopefully. And yes,
If I can respond quickly, this is Edmund from the APrIGF Secretariat. We recognize the issue. In fact, our apologies for recognizing that the program is set up in tables, which is horrible for accessibility. I do assure you that the main APrIGF site is web accessible compliant, and the Secretariat will certainly work more closely with the future hosts to make sure that the program is also in a web accessible compliant format. Our apologies for that.
Thanks, Edmund. Cheryl again. I also want to point out that APrIGF starts today, not 48 hours ago. So anybody who's trying to join APrIGF, and this is an APrIGF synthesis document 48 hours ago, was well ahead of the game. But just with that point being made, NetThing, which did run yesterday, may very well have been something that someone was trying to join in. And unfortunately, relatively late in the game, we also discovered that we were going to be using entirely different Zoom links, entirely different Zoom providers. And it may very well be that the documentation online did not catch up. Now, while I've got this, I want to really thank, if I could get up from bended knee, I'd get down on it. But APNIC for coming in and saving us on that and becoming at an extraordinarily last minute the provider for NetThing for its Zoom facilities for the size we needed. So that very well may be to the participant remotely, who's we're deeply apologetic to, that it was that mix of the two things that also complicated life from an accessible point of view.
thank you. And we'll move on to the next comment. Please go ahead.
It's Noia from Tuvalu. I would like to respond on the second question. Do emerging technologies address the pre-existing digital divide? I will say yes, and I will say no. The first part, yes, emerging technologies enabling, giving us very promising future for people who can afford emerging technologies. In the part where it widened, yes. Do you consider, we are from the Pacific Island country of Tuvalu, and we have remote societies, remote communities that are left behind because of, of connectivity and internet. Do you address, how do you approach in terms of community-wise coverage? Emerging technologies can help a lot of the local grassroots, at the grassroots level, but can they adopt the technology? And that's a question in mind. So yeah, so coverage, affordability, and adoption. Thank you.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I'm just gonna take a quick look online. We don't have any hands.
Yeah, we do have,
we?
Yanchin, we do have a comment in the chat. The speaker is unable to switch on their mic, but I can read on their behalf. This comment is from Seerat Khan, and she says that I fear the emerging technologies being adopted in some parts of the Asia Pacific region because of surveillance and privacy issues. I'm more wary of the internet now because I feel nothing is private anymore. Also, I do feel more conversations around content moderation should be taking place. Civil society does a lot of content moderation for big tech companies, and this added labor on our part. Also, we are talking about AI. We need to first address exclusionary policies adopted by European countries through AI. If AI is making our lives more easier, why is it leaving out so many people and being used as a means of surveillance on them? Thanks, Edith, for your comment. Back to you, Yanchen.
Thank you. Thank you for that comment. And we do have someone on site as well. Please go ahead.
Hi, this is Raj Singh for the record. Thank you for the opportunity. Great to see so many people in the town hall. I think we've tried very hard in past years to get people in the room, and it's lovely to see, I'd say, what, 120 odd people maybe, or thereabouts. So I'd like to address some comments, or I'd like to offer some comments around the second bullet point, emerging technologies and pre-existing digital divides. Some of you have heard me speak before, and I've always had concerns for these new digital divides that we are building, and we continue to do that. You know, if you've been at the NETHing session yesterday or the Pacific APrIGF sessions of the yesterday and today, and of course this session here, you're hearing a lot of different perspectives of, you know, islands, the issues they face. I live in regional Australia. NBN for me was no bloody network for a very long time, right? And so I have lived the digital divide, strange as it might sound for someone in supposedly a wealthy country such as Australia. But yes, I suffered from issues. As another example, when I'm sitting in my home office, I have no mobile signal. Right? And Vodafone these days keeps on sending me messages saying, because you can't log on to our 4G, 5G network, you need to replace your phone. Except my phone does support 4G. It's because their signals don't reach me, right? So the point I'm trying to make here is this, that, and that's just one example of simple old me, right? And you have to look at what else is happening around the region and the sort of environments people are in and the issues they face. So yes, there's lots of all these funky new technologies that are coming out. I mean, people have been playing with AI and generative AI and all this VR and whatnot. But also keep in mind, those technologies need a whole lot more. I will not be able to use those technologies on my phone sitting at home because I don't have the bandwidth. I don't have the latency that is required to make the systems work. And the other peeve I have with a lot of new applications and services, have any of you ever looked at how much updates you do pretty much every week on your iPads or your computers or your phones? I actually measured that. I was doing 4 gigs of updates a month on one device. Okay. Now, put that into perspective. We talk about the Pacific Islands, for instance, or regional parts of countries such as Australia. That's a lot of bandwidth just to update one device to ensure that I have, you know, everything is updated security-wise. If we have 5 devices, multiply that by 5. And then the other problem I have is with the applications people or we are developing. They are bloatware. I mean, I come from an era where we use assembler to compile stuff, and it was small in size and things worked. But now it's just pure bloatware. Some apps are 500, 600, 700 megabytes in size, and all they do is calculate a bunch of numbers together, a calculator. Why is it 500 megabytes in size? I have no idea. Because it's bloatware. People are lazy in coding these days, right? They just use whatever's been used before. They don't fix it, they don't tweak the code, and they just keep on churning stuff out because they need to get product to market. So, you know, it's nice talking about all these things, but there's some really basic issues that we still keep getting wrong. And we've had this discussion 10 years ago, maybe 20 years ago. Circumstances may have changed, but those issues still remain. So sorry, I just needed to have a rant. Thank you.
I'm sure a lot of us share the same sentiment from your rant. Thanks for sharing that. Lakendra, do we have anyone from online?
We do have a conversation going on online about the utility of English as opposed to other languages, but I'm still waiting for a more concise comment and question on that. So right now, as of now, no. If we have some more people in the audience there.
Yes, we do. So we'll move on to on-site first, and then we'll come back to you. Yeah, please go ahead.
Kia ora tātou. I'm Vivian Maderborn from Internet New Zealand, for the record. I just want to congratulate the organisers of this event. It's really, really awesome to see people from the Pacific and from around Asia here. It's been wonderful to be here and hear the really different conversations than what I would hear at home. So, you know, that's the part that's I want to just recognise. I've been thinking, listening at the sessions, about the core skills of multi-skilled stakeholder work. And it's almost like I feel like we've got seduced into topics to talk about rather than what do we do and be to present great stakeholder conversation to create a range of options which we agree or disagree about, resolve problems, and then move forward with some core unified thoughts. How do we build those muscles and practice that craft? And then, you know, this distraction, I sat sometime yesterday in the Pacific track and I was so struck that the priorities of that room were completely different. Connectivity, you know, basic online services, compared to in this room where we were talking about new technologies, and we've heard that repeated here. However, the core skill of resolving those issues in the Pacific is multi-stakeholderism, community, collaboration, and the same with the new. So I would love to see us set up some of those conversations and practice that work at these forums so that we are growing those muscles of multi-stakeholderism, if that's the right word. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Lakendra, are we ready with the virtual comments?
Yes, we have a statement from Jean. So we had a discussion going on online about inclusivity, English, multilingualism, and so Jean has summarized their statement as English is the best we have. So it would be great if we could leverage it instead of complaining about it more often than not. And Jean also adds that they have learned English for way past half their life and they are not a native English speaker. And then we also have, can we please mute Mohit? Yes, thank you. And we also have a comment from Ying Chu. If Ying Chu can make the comment themselves, that would be great. Otherwise, I can read it aloud.
I think Ying Chu is saying that she can't connect on her mic. So
okay, I'll read it. So Ying Chu is responding to Raj. And Ying Chu says that I update more than 10 apps on my Android mobile every day. They should be regulated and asked them to provide more update details. Okay, we also have a comment. Let me just quickly check. We have from Abdullah Kamar. Abdullah, can you open your mic and speak it?
Hello, hi everyone. This is Abdullah from Bangladesh. Thank you so much, and I believe this is an opportunity to meet and to be part of this event. So I joined lately, so I beg your pardon. So I just missed some of the portion. So, but I'm glad to be with the team, with the APrIGF. So I'm glad, and thank you all. And I believe I will be there. There will be lots of intakes. So I think I'll be getting a lot of experiences. So what I mean, lots of veterans are experiencing a lot of things, which will help to contribute more for upcoming days, I think. Thank you, Lokendra.
Thank you, Abdullah. We have one more comment from Seerath. Engineer, if I can take that quickly. Okay. So the comment from Seerath is multi-stakeholderism isn't always viable though. Multi-stakeholder doesn't work when spaces are shrinking and actors have to self-censor themselves due to safety and privacy issues. I just think there needs to be acknowledgement over the fact that multi-stakeholderism has its limitations. Thank you, Seerath, for that comment. Back to you, Yinchen.
Thanks, Lakendra. We do have one more comment on site, and after you, we will move on to the next subtrack. But don't worry, because at the end we'll still do an all issues session, like 15 minutes. So please go ahead. Yeah.
So hello, everyone. I am Tatiksha Vasisht from the Pranava Institute. Thank you so much. It's a bit too late. So hi, everyone. I'm Tatiksha. I'm joining from the Pranava Institute based in New Delhi, India. And one of the things I wanted to raise as we're talking about emerging technologies, digital divide, and new challenges that we see in the region is as we see the ubiquitous spread of technology across the Asia Pacific, and a lot of that is, we also see the spread of big tech players in the region from the West. I believe, like somebody else also pointed out before, that we ought to focus a lot more on our challenges, which are more focused on the region itself. And therein one specific one, which I'm concerned about, is deceptive design or dark patterns, which are ubiquitous online. They're on apps, they're on websites, they're pretty much everywhere you look. And especially when we talk about digital natives and a whole bunch of young populations, old populations come online for the first time. They have issues not just with accessibility, but also in general with a web which is tricking and deceiving them all the time. And there are no alternatives. There is no regulation in many of these countries which protects their data or protects their privacy, right? So when we talk about deceptive design, we need to think about how can countries in the region set good examples for each other. For example, Australia recently passed a law banning Amazon from making it hard for consumers to unsubscribe to its services. Now, this has been existing in the European Union for long, but Australia was the first country in the Asia Pacific to actually go ahead and put something out. And in India, when I look at that, I feel great and I can point out and say, hey, somebody in our region, in our neighborhood is doing it. Why is Amazon pushing discriminatory policies in the rest of the world, where only the US or EU are jurisdictions where you have privacy laws, and here you discriminate based on those very grounds. So I think as we group together and talk more about consumer rights, privacy, and set those examples across the borders, I think it strengthens the region and makes the internet safer for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. And you talk about security, that brings us right next to the keyword and right to the next subtract, which is on trust. We do have some guiding questions on the screen as well. Yeah, so on trust, here are some guiding questions. I'm gonna just quickly look at the sessions today that touches upon this subtract. So we do have the AI in APrIGF session as well. Policy development on generative AI, amplifying multi-stakeholder voices in cyber diplomacy, and breaking security for online safety sessions. So any comments to start with for trust subtract?
Hi, so I'm just gonna point out how actually, I'll just stay here, that 1/3 of the children around the globe are using the internet, and most of them are in developing countries. So the problem is the systems in place that protect children are not found in developing countries, but found in more advanced economies. So the problem is there with the developing countries. They don't have protections, they don't have guidance, but most of the children users are there. So that is one thing that should be discussed in the regional stage. And maybe those in the more advanced economies can give guidance to those who are in developing countries, because we need those things. And children are facing risks online that they don't know about.
Thank you. Sorry, could I just get your name for the record? Yeah.
Maristella.
Thank you. All right, and we'll move on to virtual first. Lokendra, anyone or from the local hub?
So we do have Dhruv from the local hub from DAV College Amritsar here in India. Dhruv, would you like to take the mic? Okay, I'll read it aloud then. They ask, I would like to ask emerging trends in virtual space and physical space for win-win strategies in Asia Pacific. I'm not sure I get that question correctly. If is it possible for Dhruv to open the invite and elaborate on it? Okay, we'll move ahead then, Inchin. I don't see any more comment on trust right now online.
All right, thank you, Lakendra. We'll take one on site first, and then I think there is one on the local hub. So we'll take on site and then we'll move to the local hub. Yep.
Yeah. I'm going to deal with the third question on how do we foster trust in emerging technologies that many neither understand nor use. This is Shraddha for the record. So the answer to this question comes from two aspects. One is a session that we attended yesterday on day 0 about capacity building. So something that we discussed during the session on how trust can be built and what trust means to us was that we understood that trust works both ways. So there has to be the other person. And the easiest way you can lose trust is when you don't understand the other person. So the question itself contains a part of the answer when they say that many neither understand nor use. So when we understand the technology, as in it becomes simple for us to know how the technology works or how the data is being collected. And instead of the privacy policy running into hundreds of pages in legal jargon that is not understandable, if you just make it a little simpler for people to understand what they're giving consent to and what their data will be used for, I think we can foster a lot of trust in that aspect. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, indeed, communicating in layman terms is required, but yeah. And we will move on to online. Lakendra, for the local hub, are we ready or?
Yes, we do have Professor Preeti Kamra from DAV College Amritsar. If she can take on the mic. Okay, she says she has a really bad throat. So how would you like to pose your question? Okay. I'm not sure she's able to speak right now. We'll wait for a few more minutes on that, Inchin. I'll get back to you.
Okay, thank you, Lakendra. And on site, do we have any other comments on? Yes, please go ahead.
Hi there. On the back of the last speaker, that common language in the tools that we use, you know, all of the little, and I said this yesterday, but all of the little steps that we take online are all micro trust decisions. I wonder, and I know that there's a lot of work happening in Australia. I'm not so aware outside of that, and I'm not sure where we capture this, but what I'm hearing here is if we have issues with language generally, but we're doing internet governance at a regional level, and trust depends on our language, we really need to work on those. We talk about how we foster trust in emerging technologies. One of those things is I think people use some of the products as utilities when they are products and they do have choices. These products are using language and methods for cookies, for terms of privacy, for data brokering. And I don't see how that is any different from sharp practices in contracts for any other product. I guess that's more of a comment, but I think that there, the underlying language is really important, and then how we reinforce that in Australia and other countries like New Zealand, who do have a level of influence globally and in the region.
Thank you. And sorry, if I could get your name for the record, please.
Oh, my name's Kiki.
Thank you. And do we have any other comments on site? For trust, yes, please go ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name is Vikalpa. And first of all, I just want to say thank you, a massive thank you to all the organizers, speakers, panel members for putting together such a remarkable event on such an important topic. My comment basically relates to the third question. So how do we foster trust in emerging technology, right? I think the platform economy has become so complex that, no matter how you try it, I don't think that a layman can understand what's being collected, how your data is going to be used. For example, one of the standard contracts will say that, okay, we're gonna only share it when it's necessary with the people that it needs to be shared with. That is their providers. But then who are those providers and how they're going to use it is not clear. So I think there's a much bigger role here. Okay, now he's done. So instead of, we know that we're moving from a mechanism that is based on notice and consent mechanism to a more rights-based approach, which the EU has done. So I think we just need a more rigorous mechanism that enables the regulators to regulate, that puts more obligations on these private companies on how data is used instead of just a mere notice and consent mechanism. And that would be my 2 cents. Thank you all.
Thank you. I'm sorry for the technical issues there. And I believe we have one more on-site comment.
So my name is Charlotte.
I am from Local Hub.
And I'm a third-year university student. So I just wanted to give my perspective on the theme of trust. I just wanted to question why, while trust seems like a very important theme, as someone who grew up in like a time where all of these technologies have already emerged, I just question why trust is valuable. It has been chosen as a theme that's maybe more, when maybe we could, maybe a theme such as accountability might be a bit more important, especially in future generations. I think that as someone who like was always exposed to these different technologies, I think that with time, humans will be able to like naturally, sorry, not naturally, but with exposure to these emerging technologies, I don't see trust being a really prevalent issue. I think accountability might be even more like a bigger issue to scrutinize, because like I see children who don't really understand what iPads or iPhones are for, but they have massive trust in them already. So I think just with generational change, I think trust will become a lesser issue. So I just want to question and like challenge a bit the theme. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And Cheryl, did you want to?
Hang on. Okay. Declaring interest here, grandmother. My grandkids live on the property with us, right? So I've watched the now nearly 18-year-old go through all of the things that he's gone through. And I watched the 15-year-old going through all the things that she's going through. And I'm very closely watching what the 6-year-old is or is not doing, because they trust too much. And I don't want them to learn the hard way how not to trust in these technologies. So I think, and I absolutely support you, do not get me wrong, absolutely support you. Accountability and transparency is key.
Good.
We also need to have shared responsibility, either from the village, from the local community, from the family, or for heaven's sake, some other way to help build resiliency before it's learned the hard way. Because I don't want my 15-year-old meeting somebody that they thought was another 15-year-old when they're not. I don't want my Minecraft manic child. I mean, she even had a Minecraft birthday recently. You know, she needs to know if she's chatting to people she doesn't know. and show all of those things, it's very difficult for us to bring very adult concepts of trust to very young minds. But I'd like to suggest that in the minds around this room and the technology experts we have and the educators we have access to and the resources that we could pull together, we might find appropriate ways to help them learn in a fun way why certain decisions are better made in certain ways. That could be cartoon-based or whatever. So I think there's a real emerging possibility, a whole field of possibilities that in this wishy-washy area and lots of new toys coming out, that we might be able to bring some both lived experience, some caution, but some solutions to not just our tiny little community, like the few people who live on my property, but the wider community, so we're all more likely to benefit. But you're right, accountability is essential, but accountability is almost retrospective. We need some proactiveness. Plain language, absolutely essential. We have plain language contracts, for example, in telecommunications in this country. And if I was in an ordinary Australian-based conference now, I'd ask them to put up their hands for any of them to show me how many have ever read what they're acknowledging, accepting when they tick the box. So even in plain language, if you don't read it, you've got no chance of understanding it. So there's a lot of little learnings that we could perhaps encourage everyone to do. There's obviously somebody in the hubs desperately needs to talk to us.
Thank you, Cheryl. We will move on to the virtual participants first, and then we'll take the comment on site. I note you have a comment here, but we'll move on to virtual first. Lokendra, please.
Thank you, Injin. Before I move to them, can I request Secretariat to kindly take note that we have a lot of individuals creating nuisance in the meeting right now by deliberately switching on their mics. Can we please address that as soon as possible? This is really disrupting the meeting. Thank you. We'll move to Ming Tet now. She has her hand raised. Ming Tet, would you like to?
Yes, thank you. So I would like to comment. Sorry. Okay, I open my camera. So I would like to comment on the questions, answer the questions at the start of the event. So for me, technologies could be a really great tool to tackle social issues. However, on the other hand, I think like emerging technologies widen existing inequalities and gaps for now. So in developing countries like Myanmar, like my country, especially a marginalized community, there are still many people like lacking basic digital literacy as well as even basic education, while people in developed areas are using advanced technology to innovate and doing the great things. So infrastructure also plays an important role because basic access to internet, even 5G, because most of the places, even in cities like developed areas, do not get access to 5G because 5G with 5G you can do a lot of great things. But without 5G, your productivity can be largely affected by it if you are doing you are an innovator, especially. So. It can also lead to, this is not related to more about the technology than digital, because industries from developed countries are moved to the places where vulnerable communities live and cause pollution, like it's called outsourcing the damage. That is also a huge issue about the environment. And also emerging technologies are now affecting the privacy of the people's personal data. For example, like even the government involved to gain backdoor access to user communications and data from tech companies for national for the reason like national security, or it can be a good reason, but on the other hand it can be violating the kind of personal data. And to overcome those issues, I think the role of combating other social issues such as poverty and quality education, gender equality, sustainable economy, like the whole SDGs, are also very important because they are really related to each other. So all the stakeholders need to work together on those wicked issues to spread, so that we can spread our digital awareness, educate digital literacy, improve infrastructure as well as the economy. That's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mingthet, for that detailed comment. We also have a number of comments online. Can we please mute Herman? Thank you. Can we please mute? Yeah, thank you. So we have one comment from Mohammed that says we shouldn't provide too many leeways in the name of innovation. Harms done is irreversible and constraints are good for economy and people in the long term. Then we also had a comment from Abdullah Kamar from Virtual University of Pakistan. Abdullah says that as a community, I think we can play a critical role in fostering trust in the emerging technologies landscape, promoting education, transparency, security, ethical practices while contributing to creating a safe and trustworthy digital environment for all stakeholders. We also have a comment from Seerath, which says, with stakeholders, it's important to have trust and an understanding around internet governance issues. I think some countries in the Asia Pacific stakeholders are so wary of each other that they end up working on separately instead of working together. Also, I think trust should also address shrinking and isolated spaces that civil society works in. Thank you so much, everyone, for your comments online. I hand it over to you, Yanchin.
Thank you, Akendra.
Oh, we have Amrita as well. We have Amrita raising her hand. Amrita, would you like to add
Yeah,
here?
I know that Amrita has your hand, but we do have a queue here as well. So Amrita, sorry, just
Sure.
pause a little while. I'll do an on-site and then we'll come back to the virtual again. So we do have a hand at the back of the room. Just first to, yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you. So the discussion a while back, actually, I just wanted to add something. So there was a question about how young generation do not trust the digital space as much because they know what's going on. But there was this session on breaking security for online safety, what's at stake for Asia Pacific. And in that session specifically, a question was asked, what if you tomorrow understand or you find out that government can actually read the messages that you send through WhatsApp? Are you still going to use it? And there were quite a few young people who actually raised their hand. So, and the speaker actually said that this is quite common, and for those who were born after 1997, for whom this process has been normalized, it is a lot easier for them to actually trust because this is a normal thing for them. So that was actually what was told by the speaker, which I found quite interesting because even when I'm using my phone and there is this option that comes up which says allow the app to track or don't allow. And when I sometimes just out of curiosity, I press the button which says allow the app to track. And I guess this is something that that's a very close at heart thing to young people, and that is why it's a normal thing and they tend to trust such things more as well. Now, coming to my second point, now we discussed the root cause of potential reason behind lack of trust, specifically data sovereignty pertaining to developing countries. And one of the things we discussed in our panel was the challenge of data sovereignty can be addressed through open source AI initiatives such as Bloom and Llama. Now, after the session ended, I had a very interesting conversation with an individual in regards to how even open source AI can cause a problem for those who actually develop it, because somebody else has the ability to copy all the data and use it for their benefit. So in this context, it seems like we are discussing, the discussion is developing also in the lines of how we discuss environmental solution. And one sect discusses more about common but differentiated responsibility, because a country like Nepal is not going to be able to afford a large language model. They'll not be able to develop things on their own. But at the same time, there are developed countries or people from developed countries and company who definitely put in a lot of hard work in developing that.
And if it's an open source, then anybody else can actually access it. So where is the issue of copyright maybe, and why should they actually share their hard work? So this is sort of a dilemma that I actually found post the session. So maybe if this is something that we can address in the coming issue, or if anybody else has an idea on how we can strike a balance on it, I would be more than happy to listen to it. Thank you.
Could I trouble you to restate your name for the record?
Yes, Mamta Sivakoti.
All right, thank you. And thank you for the wait. Please go ahead.
Oh, kia ora. My name is Joy Liddycote. I'm from Internet NZ. And I just really want to pick up on the point that a younger person made here about whether we're asking the right trust questions in this, with this set. And I actually really want to support the stance that she took. And I feel as if these questions could have been asked at an IGF 10 years ago. And I'm wondering, are they really the biting trust issues for stakeholders today? And for example, I think if we were to challenge ourselves and go a bit deeper with issues of trust, I see one of the major issues is whether whether stakeholders actually really trust each other enough at the moment. And how do we see signs of trust between stakeholders and multi-stakeholder processes that are strong and working well? So, for example, I see a strong representation from the technical community at this IGF, which is fantastic. I see strong participation from civil society, which is fantastic. And some participation from business, which is also good. Government, perhaps not as much. It's really just to ask that question of, if we want multi-stakeholder process to be strong, then we need to have better trust in each other. Part of that involves participating in the IGF forums and processes, and not trying to replicate and expand these discussions into new forums that dilute our efforts. And I'm hearing from people that they're exhausted with the multiple forums, for example, that we go into. So can we trust each other to participate in the forums that we have? Well, and if not, if there are issues of trust, can we talk about that openly and ask each other, well, how would I know to trust governments more, or to trust other civil society groups or technical groups more? I think if we delved into that a bit more honestly, then I think we could really offer something perhaps to other IGF processes. Thank you.
Thank you. And yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, hi, I'm Shyam Krishna Kumar from the Pranava Institute, New Delhi. I wanted to add to the conversation on trust and safety, especially to the excellent point that was raised before. We are looking at more than 45% of the internet with being youth, people aged 25 or below. A large part of that is in the Asia Pacific region. And the way they're experiencing the internet is completely different from the way that previous generations have used the internet, because to them it's an immersive reality. They've grown up with it, and COVID has pushed a lot of education and critical facilities onto the internet. But if you look at the curricula that they're going through when it comes to digital education, it is rather preliminary. And I say this with some responsibility because I've checked the curricula across some parts of this region. So we are actually enabling them to enter a new world where they are immersed, right? Their social relationships are there, their personal relationships are there, education is there, right? Entertainment is there, and they're immersed in this world, and we don't really give them the tools to think about it, right? It's not a question of whether they trust this platform or not. Maybe my concern is they trust too much. They think it's too safe. How do we really help young people responsibly navigate the internet in a way that ensures their freedom and dignity and autonomy? I'm not talking about parental supervision, but rather giving the tools that would enable young people, the education that would enable young people to make informed decisions. Can we make that a part of curricula? Can we make that informative? Can we create open source resources that would enable people across this region to pick up and adopt in their local communities or their schools? I think that's a key component to trust and safety, especially when the kind of emerging technologies that we're looking at with AI-powered things and interfaces changing. How can we inform young people for the digital world that they already are a part of, and a digital world that their parents do not understand, their teachers do not understand, and their community barely understands? I think that's the point I wanted to add.
Thank you. We will switch to virtual for a bit now, and then we'll come back to on-site. Yeah. So Lakendra, please go ahead.
Thank you, Inchin. So we do have two comments, one from Amrita and one from Arman. So Amrita, would you like to go first?
Yeah, thanks, Lokendra. Hi, everyone.
I just wanted to comment on the trust part. Yes, there is a generation who has been born and brought up using the internet. For them, adoption of the various devices, apps, or services online is a very natural thing. However, there is also a group of people whom we've come across in many developing countries too, especially women who do not trust even to submit their comments even on social media simply for being judged online. And this is something which we found in many group discussions, that while they want to be there, they do not share what they feel like on public platforms because they would be judged. Another thing is, while the young generation, use everything, I would not say trust, it is convenience. Even I agree to many app, terms and conditions because I find the convenience weighing higher than my privacy at that point of time. But many times when the so-called faith you have in that particular service is, you find that it is not there, that time you lose trust on it. Just like, we are afraid that the governments may be surveilling on us. So there is a trust deficit. So if we say that the younger generation do not think about trust, definitely trust is there. They don't trust their parents to snoop on them. So there is the thing, but what overweighs the trust factor for convenience, I think that is what we choose on. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Amrita, for that detailed input on trust. We move to Arman now. Arman, would you like to? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Lokendra. So just for the record, my name is Arman Chaudhary and I'm from India. So when we're talking about the term trust in the Indian context, in the recent time, what I think about is the concept of consent. Because recently, in the Indian context, the recent act on the data protection that we have in the country brings forward the concept of consent manager, right? So when I talk about consent, it is something that is a very basic prerequisite to develop that kind of trust. Because even while we are sitting in this room, I have that trust with all the members, all the people who are sitting there, because I know that my consent, whether I want to speak or not, whether I want to participate in a stream or in a session or not, it is something that will be taken into account. And hence, even though I don't know people participating in this forum, I have that kind of a trust with them, right? So coming back to the act that we have been recently initiated in India, a consent manager is a third party entity responsible for managing the consent of the data principal or the common users like us. And they ensure that whether a data fiduciary can use our data or not. And if yes, then they would have to specify how they are using it. Now, whether this is the best way to manage one's consent or not, that is something I think is subjective. But yes, if we are able to develop a framework wherein the consent of each and every user or a member participating in the digital world is given the ultimate priority, I think we would be able to develop that basic form of trust within the stakeholders in the digital world. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Arman. Back to Inchin.
Thank you. So we'll move back on site and we have 3 comments here. So once we end the comments, we'll move on to the last subtrack. So please go ahead.
Hi, it's Paul Wilson from APrIGF, but I'm talking on my own behalf here as an individual and a parent. So I wanted to commend the comment on trust before. I think it was actually very brave to stand up and question the headline of this slide. But I also want to agree that I think, as Joy said, maybe 10 years ago, this is an achievable or an important question. But these days, the internet is as big as society, as big as the world. And I can't imagine a parent wanting to train a child or educate a child to just trust the world or trust society, or that anyone in charge of a society could be aiming for a society that can be globally trusted. If they did, I'd wonder what sort of authoritarian mechanisms we were looking at to try and create a completely safe and trustworthy society. I don't think it's possible. So I really think it's an important question that the internet is not a place which can be fully trusted. It's a place we have to enter with tools, with education, with equipment. As Cheryl said, certainly there are kids who are young enough to need a lot of help. There are a lot of adults who are young enough on the internet to also need a lot of help. And I think from my own sort of experience over many, many years, I think there are many kids who can tell their parents a lot about trust on the internet. There are many more adults than kids who get scammed. And even I have to say in terms of sexual content, probably less young adults who would get scammed by that than middle-aged adults who get scammed by romance scams. So I just think, I think maybe it's correct that the idea of trust in the internet is something we really should acknowledge is not really a realistic or even maybe not even a desirable goal. People have often said, why is email so untrustworthy? Well, the alternative to the email we have today would probably be one that has a central identified registry of everyone who uses it. And I don't think anyone wants that either. So, you know, there are a lot of compromises, and the internet has just got too many facets to be trying to achieve such sort of lofty and unrealistic goals. So thank you.
Thank you. And we'll move on to the next comment.
Shanna Fung for the record, Asia Pacific Youth IGF. I am also lining up in response to that comment from Charlotte earlier, but I honestly have a lot of mixed feeling lining up, hearing so many different comments from our members in the room as well as online. I think one thing that Paul just mentioned is about questioning. I think regardless of which generation, we should not lose our ability to question whether something should be trusted or not. Because as our environment change, we define trusts or how we approach things differently because we have to adopt to the change in the world. And so we must put effort and pay attention into capacity building of different generation, not only the next generation, on the technical aspect of the internet, as well as all the issues around it, as well as public policies, digital policies, as well as the literacy on legislation and regulation. That's how they can have the ability to make informed decision as one of them to mention as well. I think that's really important. I think from yesterday at the capacity building, many people mentioned about how we should put effort in doing capacity building on closing the gap of the younger generations on, understanding the technical aspect. I do agree, it's very important, because if you don't know how the internet work and how is the infrastructure is like, they won't know why certain thing can be trusted and cannot be trusted. And in order to make our discussion here fruitful and productive, we must also develop everyone's, maybe our grandma as well, somewhere out there, to have the ability to understand legislation and regulation, because they are affected. Although my grandma focused more on cooking me nice food, but she's also online these days. So she might have to have certain understanding, maybe not as much as us on, how this digital policy work, but at least I will tell her, don't click on the link that someone shared with you because you might get scammed or your data gets stolen. So we must, do that kind of capacity building for everyone here, because we live on the internet. It's escapable at this point. And so I think we must do something together regarding this. And I may stop here because we have one more comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and we'll take the last comment on this track.
Hi, my name's Luke. I'm part of the organizing committee for the Asia Pacific Youth Internet Governance Forum. And I think I'd just like to summarize everything and give my 2 cents on the third question. And I think really it's about intergenerationality. So we need to see collaborations between, can I call you guys maybe a more experienced generation? And the next gen. So yeah, so we might have different needs and wants. And I'm sure that the experienced generation has gone through lots of experience and doesn't want the next gen to maybe make the same mistakes as they did. And really, the next generation might think that they are fully trustworthy and trust the internet technologies with everything they have, and might actually go blindly into these emerging technologies, because many of my friends actually, it's sort of a joke if you actually read the terms and conditions. Like if you're in maybe the next gen, you'll be like, oh, you read the terms and conditions, you're old. So like, we don't want that to happen. We want there to be, we want there to be open communication between both the generations, so that we can have an understanding and both learn to trust the technologies together. And also, I think it's important to take into consideration the different cultures, because this forum is held in English, right? And trust, okay, we all understand what trust means, but trust could have different meanings in different languages. For example, I'm pretty sure that in Japanese, there are 2 or 3 terms of trust, and they might mean different things to them. So these are important to take into consideration, especially in trust and data governance and internet governance, because not everyone speaks English as the first language, and we need to make sure that the internet is inclusive. Thus, just to summarize, I think the internet and the internet governance, to move forward, we need to have the next gen in mind, so that we can build an internet for the next gen by the next gen. Thanks.
Yes, sorry, we'll need to move to virtual for a while because we do have comments as well. So I mentioned we're going to move on to the next subtrack, but because of overwhelming response here on trust, so we'll stay on trust until the end of this session, and we'll do sustainability for tomorrow's town hall session. So we will continue now with trust until the end of this session, and we'll move on to the virtual first, and we'll come back to on-site. So Lakendra, over to you.
Thank you, Inchin. To briefly respond to the last speaker, I'm young too. I'm just 26. And only 1 year into APrIGF, so I'm not experienced at all. I'm also learning like you. So I'll quickly move to the speakers we have virtually. Abdullah, would you like to unmute yourself, please?
Thank you, Logan. This is Abdullah Mamun from Bangladesh. So I would like just to add something. So internet is inevitable. So it is, though it has underlying risks and issues. I have been long through information security. So it is my bread and butter, and experience a lot of things. Now it is really very difficult for me to trust internet. I think there is no specific or central governance. So instead, all are the owners. You cannot track anything. So I think it will be very difficult. But we cannot, I mean, it is inevitable. So we cannot leave internet. But I think some emerging technology like blockchain, so which could help to gain trust as anything public and endorsed by the participant, then there will be accountability and transparency. So, but theoretically, it is very easy to say, but in practical, the big problem is adopting such technology is not that much easy at this moment. So I think just to add from my end. Thank you.
Thank you, Abdullah. We do have one detailed comment from Aviral responding to Arman's comment on consent earlier. Aviral, do we have you here? Would you like to speak it yourself?
Yeah, sure. For the record, I'm Aviral and I'm from India. So I just wanted to add on to Arman. So I just wanted to say about consent. Yeah. So like even after users give their consent to the companies to collect data and use their data, there should be a proper and easy and reliable way for people to withdraw their consent later on. So users should have a right to revoke their access to their data whenever they want, because many of times it happens that people use an app or a service for only short period of time, maybe like once a month or maybe a year even. So they don't want their private information lingering indefinitely at companies that they no longer engage with frequently. So, but however, like many businesses that I've seen, they don't provide a straightforward method to withdraw their consent and delete data. So there should be a simple and accessible way for everyone that use the service to allow people to revoke their consent and remove their information. So like consent withdrawal is like really important, I would say.
Thank you so much, Aviral. Back to you, Yanjin.
Thank you. I will move back to on-site, but I do need to cut the queue from here. So we'll have all of our comments here and we will need to end the session after this. So please go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I'm Olga from AUDA, and this is not an AUDA position, just touching base on trust. I do think it's not just the generational thing, and a lot of people currently trust too much the web, or more so like blockchain technology and cryptocurrency platforms. Data shows from last year there was 52 billion USD lost in scams from cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology that is not regulated. I do also think majority of the people using those platforms have no idea how the blockchain works, similarly to ChatGPT, and kids currently using that for their assignments. It's amazing and it generates information so easy and quickly. But at the same time, I think we need to increase an understanding of what emerging technologies are. There needs to be some form of ethical measures and grounds as well. I don't think we did hear earlier about accountability from a lot of multinationals. That is one component for it, but that does not remove individual agency. And I'm not talking about underage kids, just generally. We still need to keep in mind and that there is still individual agency, and that stems from the level of understanding, knowledge, as well as having responsible AI measures in place, not just accountability from multinationals. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have Ishak next in line. So over to you, please, Ishak.
Hello, this is Ishak from Bangladesh as a APrIGF fellow of 2023. So I'm from Bangladesh. I would like to share an issue as a disability inclusion activist. This is a reality that today internet can streamline daily life of individuals, and in the developing countries like my country, the number of digital exclusion is very much frustrating. So in such a situation, it's true that civil society organizations or civil society actors are somewhat indifferent to work for digital inclusion. So I would expect more insights or some effective strategies for youth, especially young digital inclusion activists, so that they can survive, they can be more career focused, and they can create more young digital inclusion leaders. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And we'll take our last comment for the day.
Hi, Narelle Clark from the Internet Association of Australia, and I don't think my organisation will have any issues with the things I have to say.
Or else.
Well, that's another story. So a lot of the discussion that we've had today has really been around governance of things on the internet rather than governance of the internet itself. And I'd like to address my comments back down to the base layers of the plumbing and the protocols and the packets, because that's governance of the internet, and that's really where I largely live. And towards that end, I think it's really important that we as internet organisations and those participating in internet organisations practice good governance ourselves, that we ensure that we have robust practices for the management of our organisations, for the rules and the constitutions and the systems of governance that are in place in our organisations, and that we comply with those sorts of good governance rules. These things are really important for us to have robust, reliable internet governance institutions that can operate a robust and reliable internet. And to that point, I'd like to refer to something which is happening more and more broadly across the internet today, and that is IPv4 pricing. Given that IPv4 is now a scarce resource, and we are well past running out in the cupboard. Pricing for Internet Protocol version 4 addresses is now in the stupid category. It is now driving crazy behaviour that is likely to threaten the underlying stability and the reliable operation of the internet as we go forward. We need to work together to protect the institutions that we have in place to ensure appropriate management of internet resources so that we can continue to have a reliable and robust internet into the future. Thank you.
Thank you. And I do want to do a last reminder for those who shared their input or for those who didn't come up to please put the comments in the platform because we need to document those. So thank you. And I'll end the session. I'll pass it back to the Secretary for housekeeping rules.
Thank you, Yin-Chin, from both our co-chairs, Yin-Chin in person and Lokendra online, and all your really good comments. I had the comment platform open as we were going through the session, and I'm happy to announce we now have 30 comments. I think we can do better, and we definitely will do better. Just remember to keep comment.aprigf.asia on your device when you're in the sessions. Put it in when you're thinking about it. We will have a town hall session tomorrow. At the end of the day tomorrow, it will be in this room, same room. It will start at 4 local time, from 4 to 5:30 local time here. Now I think there is some announcements from our host, Jordan. So I'd like to pass it over to him.
Thanks, Jen. Just a reminder now that we've finished the hard work for the day. A different kind of hard work comes, the welcome drinks, hosted by APrIGF and APNIC. Please head up to the Sky Terrace area. Go out the doors and go along that way, the long corridor, and then veer to the right and go through the big other foyer and you'll see an APrIGF banner. And then go up the stairs or go up the elevator around behind it. You'll find it, Sky Terrace, sky level. Time for a drink. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you everyone who joined us virtually as well. We'll be concluding the session now.
Okay, dah. Hello.